Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan here with the Rocks and Stocks News Show. Got one of our sponsors on the show in Dryden Gold. They're a brand new company that's only been trading for a couple of months, but they created a lot of excitement even prior to going public because they were able to consolidate a big land package in Dryden, Ontario, which is not very far from Red Lake, Ontario. And if this project was in Red Lake, it would probably have not gone underexplored. But part of the reason that it did go underexplored is it was a patchwork of projects that were not held by one company. Now Dryden Gold has it. Some of the historical drill results were just off the charts with extreme high grade. And they're getting some early holes into the system and trying to figure it out. Maura and Trey, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us, Allan.
Good to be here, Allan.
Well, I guess you guys are having some fun out there with the drilling so far. The old market may not be participating, but that's kind of the nature of the market these days. But you're doing the work that needs to be done to advance this project, and it's a heck of a good project because there's been some spectacular numbers come off of this in the past.
Well, I definitely agree. Go ahead, Trey.
It's a very interesting area to be so unexplored, and like you mentioned, it was a real patchwork that was put together, and I think the program that we're running now, we're just trying to expand that footprint because we've got showings of high grade gold, all along this Manitou to Norwick fault zone. So it's pretty exciting.
Well, Trey, that consolidating land package, prospective land package is sort of your background. You had a lot of success with Ellie, I hope I say it right, Ellie Royalties, building it from a really small company into a takeover. You tried to retire, but didn't have any success at that.
No, they drug me back in, Allan.
But you're kind of following the same model, right? You're going into highly prospective areas and you're consolidating. And that's sort of the model of what you did with Ellie, right?
Well, yeah, and of course with Ely, it was where we sold those properties and kept the royalty. Where here we put this property package together, and this isn't rocket science. The exit strategy for a junior company, very few ever really make that move into development and production. So but to attract a major company or a mid-tier company, you have to have the land package, and you don't want to put it together after you find the gold. So we put that together, and then very lucky to have gotten Maura to come on board with her expertise and history at Red Lake. And now she's putting together that exploration model that also is attractive to a major mid-tier producing company.
It's interesting. I used to have Andre Goumond on the show quite a bit back in the day when he was running Virginia. And, the real litmus or the real exciting part for me was watching a prospect generator find a project that they wanted to keep themselves, which ultimately resulted in Eleanor in Quebec and huge success there. So you're kind of in that sort of realm of things, in that you're you were a royalty guy, and now you got a project that you want to keep 100% for yourself.
Well, not forever, that's for sure.
Well, I like the sounds of that. So Maura, why don't you give us some of the big picture of what happened in the past on the project and where you've recently had very good results, 26 grams of gold over 3 meters, and a couple of really high grade intersections in there. And that's the nature of this camp, if you will.
Yeah, I would be happy to. I think I'll also pull up a map here
Oh,
so I can
perfect.
show you where we've been drilling. So
Do you have
share.
on your presentation that sweet looking drill core from the historical drilling?
I'm certain that I do. We can look at
Okay,
that too.
all right.
Un Unfortunately, we just have the picture, not the core.
Yeah.
Yeah, you couldn't recover any of the old core?
We do have
Not
a lot of the
that
core on site, just not that piece. Yeah.
Ah.
Somebody
Okay,
took it home with them.
I would if I could.
Exactly. So with this first drill campaign, we really want to focus on showing that there's a footprint for something substantial here. And these Archean systems, as you know, they're more complicated. They're structurally controlled. You need to have an abundance of high grade shoots to really make them mineable and make them something that has legs for the future. So, my background being in Red Lake, I know how these things work. I know that they're a little bit tricky. So we did a lot of homework over the summer on exactly, what was going on structurally in the camp. We used all the geophysics data that we had to create a geologic model. And we've noticed that there's a lot of intersecting structures. So we believe that intersection and the overall fold that we have in the region is what's controlling the high grade shoots. Historically, there's been some drilling in the 80s and 90s. Tech was in the area. They
Can
were
I
drilling on
interrupt
what
you for a second, Maura?
yeah,
Two things. Maura talked about being involved in Red Lake, but she was involved with the mines in Red Lake, underground and in exploration. So she knows what these rocks look like, not just in drill core, but underground as well. And secondly, there was a point you made there that I think is quite important about the structures and the folding of the rocks. Why that's so important is these orogenic gold systems start very deep in the surface. You need these crustal cracks in the earth that allow those fluids to make their way up, and then the folding of the rocks and everything can affect the emplacement. And so this is what Maura was getting into there, and I wanted to highlight that a little because I think it's super important.
Yeah,
it's super
let me
important to
add
know
too,
what kind of
Alan, that
deposit you're in.
before Maura jumps back in, let me add that Maura didn't just work at Red Lake. She ran the exploration program there and had about 90 people working under her. So, she knows what she's doing here.
Well, we'll get back to what's going on at Gold Rock, because it's actually very similar, in my opinion, to what you see in Red Lake in terms of the geometries and the structural controls that you have in both places. So historically, we had some drilling in the 80s and 90s that really focused on what we call the Allura trend. So you can see that on the map here. And then when Manitou got the property in the early 2000s, they really focused on the big master trend. Both of these were historically mined at the turn of the century. And this property has suffered from multiple ownership forever. Even when they were mining at the turn of the century, there were like 7 different operators here. So it made it really difficult for them to make more money. You're just mining these things from your surface expressions and going straight down onto them. They really didn't drill at that time, so it was just chasing veins. And when I walk around the property, there are old buildings everywhere. So you really see this area has fallen into the same sort of trap, having multiple different explorers, multiple different miners. And what we've done, what Trey did a great job doing, was bringing it all together. So we control the entire Manitou-Genoric shear zone, everything that we think is really key for the high grade gold mineralization in this camp. Okay, so back to where we're at now. So there's a little bit of work on Allura. There's a bit of work on the big master trend. And really, when Manitou held the ground, they found a crazy high grade hit. 53,000 grams per ton over half a meter. And that kind of grade got everybody excited, and they drilled the snot out of that. So we call that like the historically defined high grade shoot. So they drilled that off really well, but didn't capture, I think, enough of the structural geology for us to feel comfortable that we had nailed the controls on it. So with our drill program, we had a few different objectives. One that I think is very important is to look at the footprint. So we've drilled some big step out holes to the northeast. We're going to drill another big step out couple holes to the southwest, because we want to show that we have a substantial footprint here that could really host something significant. The next thing we really have to do is understand what's controlling the high grade. So we drilled a few holes in that high grade shoot area that had been historically defined so that we could get oriented core on it and get some structural measurements and confirm what was controlling the high grade. Then we decided to test a few other areas where we believed from the historical data, what we saw on surface and our interpretation, that there would be a couple other high grade shoots. So in the first two drill programs, go to that slide actually, the first couple drill programs, we got some great results, testing the two new high grade shoots and testing a little bit of an expansion on the historically defined high grade. So all of those were successful. And then we did a big step out to the northeast, not super sexy grades there, but we drilled a hole 450 meters from any other historically drilled hole, and we hit the structure with some mineralization. So all of those things are positive and tell us that we have a significant footprint here. And that's what we need to have, a big discovery.
And that is predictable. You guys predicted that's where it would be, and that's pretty important in these kind of systems.
It really is, Allan. And from there, as we start to understand the high grade shoots and how often they occur, because they are usually in a pattern, we can predict where the next ones are. And that's really why we're doing this big, step out, is to say, okay, this is our footprint. Now, where do we get those high grade shoots within it? And they usually happen at a certain kind of spacing or with a certain pattern of the geophys or folds coming in and that sort of thing. So that's what Anna and I are working on detailing now, exactly what those little clues that are left behind are telling us, so that we can find more of these, because that's really what's going to get this thing exciting. And that's what we believe is here.
And another thing I think that people have to realize is these are narrow, super high grade systems and nuggety. And so you could be 5 feet, 5 inches from, spectacular grades. And so trying to understand it the way you are is what will lead you hopefully to those kind of results, because the system has already shown that it has this high grade to super high grade nature.
Exactly, Allan. This image that I just pulled up is looking at the Big Master 2 vein. So this has had the most drilling, and you can see all the little dots are historic drill holes, and they're from Manitou. The drill holes that we did in this program are the squares. So we're looking at the grade meter, grade times meter, sorry. So you can kind of get an idea of how much gold is in this system. And you can really see two high grade shoots developing close to where there's a lot of historic data. And then 400, I believe this is 450 as well, to the southwest, we have hole 10 that intersected high grade on a new shoot that we believe is developing. But I do want to point out that you see some duds in there.
I got a question. I see that you have at KW 2306, you got a hatched line, and then you got a full line, and you've got 2 zones developing there of the high grade. Now, although there's been a significant amount of drilling on that vein, that shoot, those 2 shoots are wide open, as is the one over by KW 2301.
Absolutely, exactly. So, one that is in full line, not dashed, that's been defined the best, but it's still open at depth. And you mentioned that you can be, 5 meters away and not have any gold, but you're still in the right system. I wanted to point out that there are a few gray duds along the edges of these high grade shoots, but that doesn't mean that there isn't a high grade shoot there. So it is something you have to kind of be careful about in these systems, because they're so nuggety. You either have gold like my fist, or you have nothing, and you can just have missed it by, a few inches. So it's something to remember and not get too discouraged about when you're dealing with these high grade Archean systems. But it's really exciting to see. We only have 3 holes in that second shoot that's just next to the well-defined one. So that's another one we'll continue to test and expand on. And then the hole that we drilled, hole 10, we've actually followed up on it again in this program, that the current drill program we're doing now. So we'll see results more, I believe, developing that high grade shoot as well. And that's a deeper one at this point.
that one's pretty minimally drilled there. You got a couple hits.
2 holes.
Yeah, 2 holes. Wow. So, I mean,
Yeah.
this is still wide open at all 3 of these shoots.
Absolutely. And then I don't have a long section for it, but we stepped just behind. So the in the big master system, we have parallel zones, and that's really common in these two. They just kind of repeat. So we stepped and drilled the other direction so that we could hit what we believed was a high grade shoot on Big Master 1. And there we also had some really good success. So I think it's starting to develop as a thesis here that these controls make sense, the intersection lineation and the fold hinge. And now we just need to test them more so that we develop enough of these high grade shoots to be exciting.
Another thing that I noticed from this map is most of that drilling's within a couple hundred meters of the surface. And these orogenic systems, they go down kilometers. And there is a zonation of grade as you get deeper into the system. You get juicier grades because you're closer to the heat engine. So to get those kind of grades that you've seen so far very close to surface is quite exciting. You know, look at where you worked at the Gold Lake or Red Lake mine. You know, they struggled with that mine for probably 20 years in the first couple hundred meters. They got down to the bonanza zone and the rest was history for Goldcorp.
Yeah, they were open from the 1950s until the 90s. In the 90s, they made that discovery of the high grade zone, and it was at level 30. I mean, and then that was that's the craziest zone I think ever. It was so continuous and so high grade.
Right.
So it's really important to know that yes, these kind of deposits are really quite deep. And if you compare us to other similar ones, you can look at Rice Lake, you can look at Red Lake, you can Timmins, Kirkland Lake. All of those are kilometers deep. So we're lucky that we have this high grade at surface. We're taking advantage of that in this poor market, and we're getting the biggest bang for our buck by drilling shallow holes that are still expanding the high grade footprint. We want to get the most for our shareholders, the most value we can. So if we can prove this has this big footprint, we can prove there are more high grade shoots. We show that there is something significant here. And that's why we're really methodical about the way we're approaching this. And I think it will just continue to show that we say what we're doing, we do it, and it's a process that works, and it's worked for me in the past.
You know, and I think that you look at these systems, like you mentioned, Red Lake, Fosterville, you know, they struggled for many years. They kind of focused on that first few hundred meters. And the way you're going about it is brilliant because you're using, so to put it into context, Red Lake and Fosterville, they had years and years of data to help them focus where to go deeper. And you're doing that with a drill hole, not with an underground working, right?
Yeah, we have a lot less to work with here. So we are using all the tools from, other deposits that are similar and what we've learned through science on these. And the geophysics today is also so useful. I mean, that 3D model is worth its weight in gold, so to speak, so that we can, not drill as many holes, but get more success, because these are tricky deposits. They're not easy to unwind, and we want to do that as efficiently as possible.
So, yeah, I think sometimes people in the market these days, especially with the sentiment being so poor, they think that, it's just like this, that you come across a new Red Lake mine. It takes a little bit of work, folks, and they're doing the right kind of work for sure.
You know, Alan, if Maura didn't really touch on it, but this third vein system that we drilled, it's looking very exciting as well. It's called Elora. Had the highest grade mine on it historically, and some interesting work done by Teck. And I'm going to let Maura talk a little bit more about that, because it seems to be a little different style of mineralization over there, and something that could be very, very interesting here.
Oh, I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, thank you, Trey. I almost forgot about Elora, and it's probably one of my favorites. So on the Big Master, we're really concerned about the high grade shoots and how often they happen. But when we were looking at the Elora data, now remember that that's from the 80s and 90s, so it's a little bit older. We don't have the core from that drill program available like we do for the 2000s core. So we're looking at the data and we see there seems to be better widths. It seems to be more of a disseminated sulfide type of a system. And I should explain that you do see both vein hosted and these kind of sulfide silicifications in these Archean systems. So both make sense and both can be very high grade. But they have different fingerprints, I'd say. So the allure seems to be a bit different. And from the data that we have so far, it looks like it's got a little bit more width, maybe not as crazy bonanza grades, but more continuous width on the grades. So more like 10 grams over a wider intercept. So we're pretty excited about that. And what we've seen from the core that we've just drilled is that we see sulfide mineralization. The widths look quite good in comparison to what we've seen on the first drill program, where you're really on a vein that's, you know, fairly narrow. It does pinch and swell, but fairly narrow. So I'm pretty excited to see how those results what we've seen in the core, how those translate into the results. And then that system, we're tracing down a kilometer, like I said, down to what was historically known as the Selby area. And I can't wait to see that core in those results.
That's happening now, right? Or is that
That's happening now, like
Okay.
today. We're testing that one right now. So yeah, we're running and walking at the same time here, and we're learning so much. It's very exciting times.
And
And-
sort of something that caught my attention out of this release was that you had a 79 gram intersection over a third of a meter, but it looks like you've got some interesting grades on either side of that. So you've got this, that's something that's mineable.
Yeah, that's so true, Allan. Like we've seen that in the Big Master, where we're in the high grade shoots and near them, that we have the vein that's very high grade, but it does have alteration and mineralization on the other side. So that halo, and that's very important in these systems because that allows you to first trace them, but it also makes them more mineable. You need mineable widths. We don't mine with pickaxes. We mine with scoops. So we need something that has enough width to make a mine. And this being at surface, it certainly opens other opportunities for the potential for, you know, open pit at surface. And then going into an underground mine. There's lots of opportunities. We're way far from that right now, but it's important to think about that. We're lucky that we have metallurgical work done so far here. In 2017, Manitou did a small bulk sample program, and they had 88% recovery from gravity and 99.6 once you add cyanide. So this is free gold. This is the beauty, the type you want. It's very easy to process, and that's one of the blessings we have on this property.
That's what made things so good for Goldcorp. It was easy to get it out of there.
Yeah, exactly.
High margin.
Exactly.
Cheap and easy and high grade and makes for good free cash flow. I like that that kind of story. So there was good mineralization in a lot of the holes there. I have the news release here. I printed it off.
That's good. Well, I mean, I'm very pleased with the results we've had. The ones on the high grade shoot, I mean, out of the 6 that we drilled, we did have one that kind of got us skunked. And I think it's important that you pointed out before that it is a nuggety system. So having one that doesn't grade doesn't mean the system's not there. It's certainly there because every other hole definitely intersected that high grade. And it's wide open at depth. We haven't tested anything here deeper than 100 meters.
Yeah, everything is very shallow, all the historical drilling. And, you know, folks, that's something to pay attention to because these systems, they go down a long way and you never know when you're going to get into that bonanza zone and where it is vertically. But knowing that the system is continuing is almost as important as the grades that you're seeing. Because you can keep following that, right?
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
footprint
That's
is very important. Having that big footprint, and that's you know, that's what we're proving with this first program.
I know in epithermal veins, Maura, that the strike length of a epithermal vein is often indicative of the depth potential of that epithermal vein. Is that the same thing you see in orogenic systems?
Orogenic systems typically have, like you've said before, really deep roots. So it's not quite as important how long the vein is. They typically are really going down all the way to the source. So as you said, we see it often that they get better at depth. So it's really getting towards that more ductile environment. And we started to see in the deeper holes that we drilled on the historically defined high grade chute that we're getting into more of a shear zone. So I believe we're getting into the more ductile environment already, and that's at about 100 meters. So we really haven't tested anything at depth yet. And that is partially because we want to get as much bang for our buck on this program, but it's certainly something that we're looking at. And when do we integrate more deep drilling?
So that's indicating that you're already getting closer to the heat engine where it could get very exciting.
It's certainly saying that it's more ductile, and I don't know exactly when we'll get into the superstellar stuff, but we have high grades already, so it's certainly exciting, and it's a fun puzzle to unfold.
Well, I'm looking forward. We've got a scheduled meeting at the PDAC with you and Anna. Maybe that's a good point to talk about your geological team, because it's not just you, right, Maura? You guys are using all the tools.
Yeah, so my background is more in structural geology, and then the VP of exploration is Anna Hicken, and she's a geochemist by trade. So we kind of complement each other there, looking at things from two different perspectives and making sure we're not missing anything. So we're doing full geochem suite on this program, and that really helps us too when we're looking at the regional data set, because you you can stumble on these by accident, but it's sure a whole lot better if you can vector in on them using all of the clues. So being able to use that geochemical signature to find where other deposits and potential deposits can be within our big land package is something that's really important to us. And so being able to use those geochemical signatures is key for us. We have this huge land package, as we talked about earlier in the discussion, and we really want to show that we have a pipeline of targets. And maybe it's worth bringing that up because I don't think a lot of people have seen this yet. Something we've been working on
And
recently.
not only can that geochem tell you, give you a signature for other things to look at, in the specific stuff you're looking at, it can tell you where you are in the system as well. I know it's not the sexy stuff that people pay attention to, but I pay attention to it because I was fortunate to have a great geochemist as a mentor. So I understand how these things have fingerprints and geochemical fingerprints, and you can use that geochem to vector in and know where you are in the system.
Exactly. So even if we hit a hole that doesn't have great mineralization, if we see some of the other geochemical signature that's getting more similar to the high grade chutes, for example, we know we're not far away from them, and that can help us aim the next drill hole to intersect one. So yeah, it's really using all of the clues available to us. I joke all the time we're just detectives, but for rocks, and that's really what we are. I wanted to bring this up because I think it's really important with our overall strategy for the company. We have this great opportunity within the Gold Rock camp looking at the historically mined area and a real brownfields opportunity with Big Master and the Elora system. But we've had the chance to look at the entire property. We did field work last summer, and we've started to really put together a pipeline of targets that we have. We put out good results on the Hinman showing earlier in January, and that was from some field work we did over the summer. Getting 7 grams on surface, kind of right off the road by accident, is fantastic, and it bodes well for what this property has to offer. So I think that's one that we should do follow-up work on, and we'll be rating and ranking these constantly because you always need to be assessing your targets to decide what you should be looking at more. We want to show that this is not just one deposit, but it's a camp. I really feel that this could be, an next Red Lake camp, a next Timmins. It hasn't seen enough exploration. It hasn't seen a systematic approach. And that's what could unlock a new area for us in Northwestern Ontario as a gold camp.
Well, you made a pretty big statement there, and I don't think that that's well understood yet about Dryden. You didn't just grab this big piece of ground for the fun of it. You targeted specific things, and then you've got your boots on the ground and you've found a whole bunch of other stuff that, you know, you expect to, that's why you grab that big land package on that structure, right?
Exactly.
And I think, yeah, bring up that map more, the main map. Well, no,
You know, this one isn't bad. It also has the high grade gold that you were asking about earlier,
Look at
Alan. So there
there
we
that.
you
go.
go.
That reminds
But this
me
is,
of the rock that Goldcorp used to bring to the PDAC. Those were some fantastic specimens.
I'm hoping we'll have some, you know, before
But
too long
even
to
just
bring with
looking
us.
at that core, look at the top piece of that core, and then half of it has all the gold in it. If you happen to drill the top half and not catch that bottom half, it would have been a dud. But inches away, look at that spectacular gold there. This is why these systems need to be thoroughly examined, because that gold didn't fall from space. It came from somewhere deeper.
Yeah.
Exactly
And you don't
right.
get that much without really having legs. So that's why we were so excited about that system.
Got it.
This is a great picture of the property too, because it really highlights the Manitou to Norwick zone there, that deformation zone that runs from the southwest up to the northeast. And that's what we really targeted with, you can tell with this property package. And you know, then you have these cross structures coming in really,
Turtle
and
Pond.
only the larger one showing on here, but you know, certainly and high grade gold showings either through drill or you know, ground samples from one end of the property to the other, literally.
And you've got those
Yeah.
cross structures coming in there. I see one right above Ken West Patents,
Mm-hmm.
right below
Mhm.
Can America main block, and up there by
Yeah.
Turtle Pond.
Those are the major ones, but they actually repeat much more often at a bit smaller scale. And we have them coming in basically right where the high grade chute that was historically drilled is, as well as the number 10 hole that hit good grades on this last program. So we really think that that thesis is coming together. And the Hinman results that we talked about from this summer's field program, that's on one of these more east-west trending shear zones, the Wabagoon Fault. So we really think those are important too. But the Manitou to Norwick shear deformation zone that Trey was pointing out, we see a comparison to that and the Timmins Porcupine Duster Fault, but we're not the only ones. Metal Earth also published in 2021 a comparison of the Dryden Camp and Timmins and looking at that sort of as a key structure. So that's really our thesis with the property staking, is that that's a really important structure. You want to be a few kilometers from that to really have the chance for a big gold deposit. And that's been our strategy for the land package that we have.
Got it, because the gold mineralization is structurally controlled, and you need that big structure to crack in the earth that gets those fluids to have a path of least resistance to make their way up to close to surface. And the
Exactly.
secondary structuring, and we've seen this at Newfound Gold in Newfoundland. You know, they've got that big crack, and then these secondary cracks are equally as important.
They really are, because they create the difference, like the competency contrast or the trap. They create the trap for these places for all this fluid that's carrying the gold to fall out of the system and drop out the high grades like you see there. That's where you get this kind of visible gold. And so they're really important, and that's why we've so strategically looked for areas that have that. And that's really the thesis of our land package.
Well, and when you see core like that, it really warrants, like, I spent a lot of my career in diamond exploration, and I used to often say, if you find one diamond, a good diamond, that because they're so randomly distributed in a kimberlite, you have to really do a thorough job, because if you don't, you could be walking away from a spectacular mine. And when you see that much visible gold, it's the same story. You gotta figure this system out, and nobody, because of that patchwork history of the claims, nobody's been able to go out there and really do what you guys have done.
It's certainly a fun work in progress, and I think you'll see as we continue to release drill results and continue to drill and explore, the systematic approach. It works in these systems. You keep learning and you keep adding what you've learned to the next batch of drill holes, and that's why we're doing it in these small phases of really short week or two drill programs, so that we can add what we've learned to the next one.
And that helps you not just in the known stuff you have, but all these other targets in the region, because you're learning information that you can apply to those other targets as well.
Exactly.
So you can kind
Exactly.
of hit the ground running, right, when you go after those other targets. So,
Exactly.
Trey, why don't you give us an overview of where things stand as far as you've done you've announced the results of 2 phases of drilling. You currently have a 3rd phase and a 4th and 5th. So this only represents your first 2 phases, which was under a couple thousand meters, right?
Yeah, it's about
Yeah.
1,600 meters, yeah.
1,600 meters.
And hey, the phase 3 was what they moved over to that Elora vein.
Right.
And so that's those assays, that's been done several weeks now, and those assays are, I believe, just starting to come out of the lab. So over the next few weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, we should be, announcing results on that. This really phase 4 and phase 5, I don't know how exactly how Maura defines those, or if she even knows which of those phases we're on.
You're gonna have to
We're still on phase 4, or we
phases
completed,
soon.
but we've drilled all the way down to the south on the Selby. That's just completed.
Yeah,
And
First hole just finished this morning.
okay.
just finished this morning.
And you're
Okay.
doing more there?
We're gonna do 2 others there as well, just to get a good handle for what it looks like. And when you move a kilometer, you want to get your bang for your buck, and they're shallow holes. So
That's pretty impressive. A lot of companies, they sit there and they pound away. You guys are stepping out 1,000 meters there, and that's a testament to the predictability of the system and the work that you guys are doing.
Well, again, we're lucky that this is, it's near surface drilling. So that was that 1,600 meters in phase 1 and 2 was 13 drill holes. So give you an idea that average just a little over 100 meters per hole.
Right.
And that's continuing to be the case. And we think that that's for now, we want to show a 3-kilometer footprint. Maura was talking about that Elora vein where we drilled in phase 3, and down here at this Selby, which appears to be the Elora vein again. So that's a nice step out. We have the advantage of some of the historic mining is helping us too. There was a mine there at Selby. So and then to the north, on the Elora vein, we can't drill right now. We've kind of drilled as far north, almost as far north as we can on the patents where we're not needing a permit. So we can continue further south, but we're going to have a footprint when this to the north on the Elora vein was that Laurentian mine, which historically, and that's about a kilometer and a half north of where we did the phase 3 drilling. And that was the highest grade, biggest producing mine in the camp. It produced at about just about 0.41 ounces per ton, just under a half an ounce per ton. So, we're pretty confident that between the drilling that Teck did, which was north off the patents on Elora, and the fact that then north of that there was the Elora mine and then the Laurentian mine,
So
we think
you got 1.5 kilometers and then another kilometer.
right. We're going to have a 3-kilometer footprint with 3 vein systems.
But that's just on that El Oro trend. You've got
that's just on within the Gold Rock camp. The patents alone, if you look at them, are going to the south there further, and that's what gets down onto the Cross River ground, which we do have a permit on. So market permitting, if we can get back in the market sometime later this year for a fall drill program, that'll we'll be able to do some work all the way down on Cross River, which would be about another 4 kilometers south.
Wow.
And at least, yeah.
There was a small mine down there called Queen Alexandra, which produced at just under an ounce. It was like 0.9 ounces per ton. So, the historic mining has helped us because it helps us identify not just targets, but, able to do some large step outs here.
That's impressive. So Trey, you did a fair bit of financing before you even became public. How's the treasury looking, and how does that equate to your near term and longer term drilling?
Yeah, we started the drill program, and so while the market's never satisfied, but not many companies that go public and within their first 30 days of trading or 45 days of trading are coming out with drill results and almost 1 ounce intercepts over 3 meters and the stock goes down. So it's a what have you done for me lately market, that's for sure. But we're still in good shape. We've got we'll finish up this drill program. We've got money in the treasury, about $3 million still in the treasury. So we're watching our pennies at this point, because we want to finish this drill program and then kind of really assess where we think the best targets are, and where we can best spend our dollars. And and again, like you said, these systems can be very deep, but deep holes can be very expensive. And I forget on that where that hole 10 was, more on that step out new high grade chute that we identified there. What's the deepest that we drilled on that in this program?
That one is still about 100 meters depth. So, one of the targets that we went back on and we're going to be drilling now is targeting that deeper. So that'll be one of our deepest holes yet.
Actually,
and there isn't
and in that hole 10, that high grade was found at the bottom of the hole at about 134 meters.
Yeah, I think vertical depth is closer to 100 meters, but it's still a good value on those holes. And there's a 1,000 gram per ton hit there that hadn't been followed up. It's one of the reasons why we believe that there's high grade in this area. And so that's something we're following up on deeper in the program.
And you caught it right at the end of the hole. That 10 grammer.
We knew where it was going to be. Well, it's actually been really nice how well the vein model has been holding up, and even the fault model. So that doesn't always happen. It's really good to see.
That kind of goes back to what Trey was just mentioning about how you start poking blind holes around there, and it could get really expensive really fast. But you're able to target, and you're able to target based on your use of geophysics, geochemistry, the geological data, the old workings, all of that is going to help you vector. So getting back to Trey's point, not waste a lot of money when you do go deeper and deeper into the system. Hell of a plan, guys.
Yeah.
Like you said,
it.
you guys are off to a good start there, and really encouraged to see that. I've been around this business for 30 years, Trey, and I learned a long time ago that, the market can be a fickle thing, and those that keep moving forward are and especially if it's a good project, the more you move it forward and the more science you throw at it, small deposits, they start like this and they end up like this. But when you put more science to them, but when you have a mine, it goes the other way. And I really like the approach that you guys are taking with this project. You got a big land package, you got a system there with super high grade. You're throwing all the science at it, and I think you're onto a winner here.
We certainly think so. I mean, say more is finding gold everywhere. So I think it speaks mostly to the science, but also that this property's got a lot of gold on it.
Exactly. It's now figuring it out, but you got a great team there working on it the right way, and I really appreciate that, because I've seen things be done the wrong way. And I've been fortunate to work with some of the people that know how to do it the right way. And I get that strong feeling about Maura and her team that you guys have all put together there.
Thanks, Allan.
Thank you,
Appreciate that.
Allan. Yeah.
You're gonna give this thing the right shake, and it deserves it. You see that massive gold there. You gotta figure out where it is, and then it gets exciting.
We want to figure out where it came from.
I
Yeah,
like that,
the source.
Trey. There you go. There you go. Well, we're tentative, or we are planning on meeting in the PDAC there, Maura. So I'm looking really forward to that. What I'll probably do is take a bunch of pictures and write a report about it, or maybe we'll follow up with an interview. But it'll be great to see you guys at the PDAC.
Yeah, we'll
Well,
see
it'd be
you
great
there.
to see you too, Allan.
Yeah. And
All right.
Trey, you'll be walking around the floor as you will, Maura, during the PDAC.
Oh,
Absolutely.
So grab a hold of them, folks, and listen to their story. It's a good one. On that
I'm sure
note,
Anna and I'll have some rocks in our pocket too. So if you want to see something, come find us.
I'll take some pictures and show everybody, Maura.
Perfect.
All right, I'm going to wrap it up, guys. Thanks a lot for your time, and this has been a great discussion. And I really appreciate this, because you can read a news release, but it's really digging deeper into that news release to understand what's going on. And I find this in all investments these days, not just in mining companies. People are so focused on the headlines. They don't read into between the lines in big companies, in Wall Street, in the world economy. And that's what I like to do with these shows, is be able to dig deeper into that news release, because I learned a bunch of stuff here today that gives me more confidence about what you guys are doing.
Well,
Excellent.
those news releases can be a challenge to put together. I'll tell you that. It's getting them, because people don't like to read. And like you said, so Maura's been doing something that also you might check out. She'll send you the links if you haven't seen them. She did 2 short 3-minute follow-ups to the drill program. One on the high-grade shoots and one on the extension. And that's something we're going to do more of, and actually embed, those links right into the press releases, so that people can, go and hear the story rather than trying to read between the lines.
Yeah, and that's great, Trey. I really appreciate that you guys are using these modern tools of video and everything to get the story out there. And for example, I read the news release. I have tons of experience, but until Maura showed me that picture, that image of the long section where you can actually see the chutes and how little drilling there is around them, what could fit in there and keep going, you know, it's hard to describe that. And that's one thing I learned that really has me excited about these results, besides just the numbers.
That's good. I'm glad. Pictures
Yeah.
speak 1,000 words, right?
You got it. You got it. Okay, I'm gonna wrap it up, guys. We can chat at the other end.
Okay, thanks.
There you go, folks. Dryden Gold has got a large land package in a highly prospective area. I think it's got similar potential to Red Lake, Ontario, but it's really underexplored. And these guys have all the ground, and now they're really going at it in a intelligent way, using all the geoscientific tools that they can use. And I like the numbers that I saw in these results, but then looking at the image that I just spoke about with Maura was really instructive, because you can actually see the chutes and how what drilling is done around them and below them, and it just shows that those chutes are wide open to keep getting better and better. And so you know, Dryden is a sponsor of my shows, so this is at the benefit of them, and I appreciate them being a sponsor. And I'm also working for the viewers. I want you to understand the companies that I follow, so I really appreciate this this sponsorship. And I think Dryden Gold has a very bright future, and as a company you want to do your homework on, speak with your financial advisors about. And on that note, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.